Hey, team.
Hey, Bard.
Hi.
I'm Bard Cole from WKNO TV. I am here tonight with Joey and Bridget from Indie Memphis.
Hi.
We're having a watch party. We're glad that you could join us. The show starts at 8, but we're just here to say hi. If you want to send us messages and chat along with us as we enjoy the special, we hope you'll stick around. At about 8:55, we're going to be bringing our filmmakers in here for a live discussion.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Bart. Hi, everybody. I'm Joseph with Indie Memphis. It's nice to see so many people are watching right now and hopefully watching the films here coming up soon. Before we start, I just want to thank everybody at WKNO. Thank Philip and everybody at We Are Memphis for putting this together and coming together and helping us celebrate our Memphis filmmakers. I do want to plug one thing real quick, our Indie Grants program. If you're a filmmaker in Memphis, you definitely want to be involved in this. It is our filmmaker grant program in which we provide cash and in-kind services to 3 different Memphis-based filmmakers to produce short films. We have one for narrative short film, one for documentary, and new this year, which I am very excited about, is our proof of concept grant. It is for filmmakers with a narrative feature film that is in development to produce a proof of concept short film based on that said feature film. So please visit indiememphis.org to learn more about those grant opportunities. One of the films we're going to screen tonight is The One You Never Forget by Morgan Jon Fox, and that was partially produced through our Indie Grant program. Also, Noah Glenn and Daniel Ferrell of tonight's program are both previous Indie Grant winners. So you can see that the Indie Grant program brings about great success for everybody. So please take a look at that. And again, please come back at about 8:55 to join our senior programmer, Bridget Wheeler. She will be the one leading the conversation with everybody tonight. So, Bridget, I know you wanted to do a quick plug for our festival coming up. So,
yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, again, thank you so much, Bard, and We Are Memphis. There's nothing we love more than celebrating our hometown talent. So this is a great selection of films with really talented filmmakers. So I'm really excited to be here. For all of you Memphis filmmakers out there, if you are going to submit to the festival, all Memphis filmmakers do get to submit for free. So please email myself or info@indiememphis.com to make sure that you get the waiver code so you can submit for free. And you do have until July 1st, which is going to be our final deadline, which is a few months earlier than we have done in the past. So be sure to put that on your calendars so that you meet our deadline. And that's it. That's all I got.
Right. Awesome. I'm back here. I'm working a couple different interfaces. I feel like I'm awfully shifty in the video, but it's because I'm looking at a bunch of different things to try and keep us moving along. What time is it? 7:57. Cool. So we have about, we're in our commercial break on WKNO. The show is airing on WKNO Channel 10. And we will be here chatting about it. If you want to sit and just pay attention to the films, that is certainly the traditional option of how I enjoy TV. I know a lot of people like to chat when they're watching something, so we'll be here because we've seen these films. They're great films and we enjoy them. But what I really want is for everybody to tune in, especially at 8:55 when we bring in our filmmakers, because you can ask them questions. Bridget will be interviewing them, soliciting interesting, creative responses. But this is our first year doing it, and we're really excited. The social distancing has its disadvantages, obviously, but it's also led us to try new ways of interacting that are pretty cool.
Yeah. And feel free to type your questions as you go along as well. We will be monitoring those. So we'll be sure that we keep track of all questions that are asked while you're watching these films. And if we've got time, we'll make sure that we get them. We'll get our filmmakers to answer them for you.
So you all have been using different sort of social media platforms to have events. Since we can't go to the theaters to see things. What have you been doing? What has Indie Memphis been doing in terms of these special social media events?
Yeah, so what we've been doing is we've been using a combination of screening some of our films through our ticketing platform, Eventive. But in order to do the Q&As, we have been utilizing Zoom and streaming live to YouTube. So while we're here, I might as well plug that. If you aren't already following our YouTube channel, please be sure to do so. We've been having our Indie Memphis Movie Club discussions every Tuesday night, usually hosted by our artistic director, Miriam Bale. And they're really amazing, and they're so much fun, and you learn so much by watching these different conversations, whether it's with film critics, fellow filmmakers, and whatnot. So again, make sure you follow us on YouTube and come and check out our discussions every Tuesday.
Oh, and we're on the air. The show is on the air now.
Great.
But we will catch up with you in a little while. We'll see you at the end of the broadcast.
Yeah, feel free to comment. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Yay. How does it feel to have just watched your film on WKNO? Except for Morgan. Sorry, bud.
Sorry.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I think what we're going to do, we have maybe about 30 minutes. So I think I'm going to talk to each one of you individually, but I'm going to start with, because we've got such a variety of films here, right? So I'm going to start with the same question for everybody, but then I'm going to have a few specific follow-up questions. And then at that point, I think we'll probably have to open it up to the audience. So let's start with you, Daniel, starring Veronica TREMELL. So the first question I want to ask is, where did the idea for these films, or for your subject, if you did a documentary, where you came across the story or why you wanted to tell the story?
It really just came from, I remember there was a story about, I think Jeffrey Owens, like he played on the Cosby Show. I think he was working at like a grocery store or something like that.
Yep.
And someone like took a picture and like uploaded it online, try to shame him or whatever. So that was kind of like the catalyst for the story. And it was really just thinking about a lot of the actors and actresses like from the 90s that, don't have the same careers anymore. And I just kind of took that story and just put my own little spin on it and wanted to tell it from a female's perspective.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that female's perspective, what is it like to work with someone like Rosalind Ross? I mean, she's such a professional. She's an incredible talent. The camera obviously loves her. So what is it like to work with someone like that?
It was incredible. I felt like she was really teaching me how to direct. She has so much experience. So I didn't really have to tell her anything. She just knew what to do. And she just made my job a whole lot easier. So it was a great experience working with her.
So was she able to, like, with all the experience that she does have, was she able to kind of help really bring that, did she draw from her own personal experience to really help flesh out that storyline, or what was that? Was there a lot of give and take there with telling that aspect of it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she always knew what to do. I just really just let her take the role and just make it her own. So, when she initially read the script, she was really excited and she could relate to it at some level. And she was just really prepared to do it.
That's awesome. It's always great to see Rosalind on the big screen. Well, amazing film, Daniel. Let's move on to Zaire Love. Hi, the documentary SOULFED. So same question. How did you stumble upon this story, and what about it made you want to tell it?
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. Well, I was doing a summer internship with the Southern Foodways Alliance in Oxford, and we had to do a film about food. And my memories about food was those Sundays after church where you had, the fish plates in the bag, or you all had like these different, what do you call it? Potluck style dinners and stuff after church. And so I really wanted to capture that. I really wanted to do that. And my work, it is meant to honor and amplify the voices of the Black South. So I thought that would be something that would really capture that part of our culture, which is, church and good food. And so that church is called the Truth Church. It is in Batesville, Mississippi. And so they were so pleasant and so welcoming, and they eat 3 times a week. So they eat on Sunday, Tuesday, and Saturday. So I said, that's a great recipe. So let's capture the story.
Well, it was really excellent, and it's a really beautiful story. And have you had any follow up with them recently, now in the middle of a pandemic, and kind of what that piece of of their community within their church looks like now.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to follow up as far as like really having those discussions, but I did let them know that, you know, they will be on TV tonight. But I also like join in on Sundays or on some Sundays where they're live streaming. I'm not sure if they're doing the cooking, but I'm pretty sure somebody's in the kitchen. So it's like live streaming from home because it's a pretty small church, but it feels like a family church. So they kind of do it from the house.
Yeah. So, and a question more maybe about you as a filmmaker, because I know this past year at Indie Memphis, you had 3 films in the festival, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I remember sending you that email. I was like, wait, but I've got 2 more. I got 2 more follow-up emails for you. So you show, you know, quite a range as a filmmaker. So you've had this really, you know, this beautiful, you know, kind of structured documentary, but then you also have, you know, maybe some more personal pieces as well as kind of experimental and hybrid. So again, you've got a lot of range. Where do you find that you're most comfortable as a filmmaker in, you know, your style of storytelling?
Yeah, where I'm most comfortable, definitely in that poetic experimental range, because I like to marry both narrative and documentary. I'm really interested in documentary because it allows me to tell a true story. But while pairing it with narrative, it allows me to tell that creatively. And a lot of the people that I have went in partnership as far as creating it, allowing me to capture their lives. They've also been very, 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 very willing to like go on this creative journey with me, because I'm not sure if you all know, I just started making films when I started my MFA program in the fall of 2018. So it's been thank you. I just graduated virtually, y'all.
Yay! Congrats.
Thank you. So just being able to go on the journey, both figuratively and literally, has been great. So that's my sweet spot, that poetic, experimental form of documentary.
Now, is there anywhere, if you want to kind of plug those 2 other films, I would love for you to do that. And if there's a way that other people can see those films, just so everyone can have context to your range as a filmmaker.
Sure. I can put it in the chat, but they're on www.zairelove.com, and the 2 other films were called, one is called Trees and the other is Ponzel.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. All right. David Goodman, Floating Pilgrims.
Yes.
There's a lot of chatter in the comments box about this particular documentary, which was also the jury award winner of this past year's festival, right?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. What an interesting story. So how did you stumble upon this story?
I've always been, well, I haven't, in the last 10 years or so, I've taken an interest in that area. It's a little marina. You drive through Martin Luther King Jr. Park, and there it is. It's hidden. As you heard Lisa, one of the residents, call it Hidden Lake. It is kind of an unknown area. I was very interested in it as a place and who the people were who lived there. Their homes, they're floating in the water. I found that fascinating, and so I approached the residents, and they were very friendly. And over time, I started videoing. So yeah, it started as an interesting place and people and grew, and it was filmed over a long period of time, over the course of a year. So I wanted to see the seasonal change and what happens to the place as much as to the people over that time.
I mean, it really was just an absolutely stunning portrait of this community. And, you know, it did seem like a really tight-knit community. So what was that like to build that relationship within the community and build that trust in order for them to be like, sure, turn the camera on, we'll talk to you? I can't imagine, you know, and I'm sure Zaire, you can probably, you know, anybody who's done a documentary can kind of speak to like, that is such a huge and obviously crucial piece, is to build the trust. So with a tight-knit community like that, what was that like for you?
Well, I met the right person first. Harold, who calls himself the mayor of of the marina.
Yeah.
And he was sort of an ambassador for me, introducing me to the other folks who live down there. And I think that's always helped in many of the documentaries that I've made, having someone who brings me in and introduces me to the other people involved in a community event, or in this instance in a marina. So yeah, talking to Harold and then meeting Larry Stanley, who owned the marina, and just gradually meeting more and more people there. And it took time for everyone to warm up to me, but I'd say, yeah, overall it's just sort of meeting step by step different people who introduced me to the group.
That's awesome. It takes a lot of patience.
Yes.
Did you run into anybody that was overly skeptical, or did you run into any of those kind of roadblocks when uncovering all these characters and their stories?
I didn't encounter much skepticism. There were people who just didn't want to be involved in the piece, and I respected that, and always, turn the camera away or not include them. But yeah, I think, with any subject, there's always going to be a little bit of resistance from someone who just doesn't want to be on film. Right. But other than that, no, not a lot of skepticism. I was very warmly welcomed, and I found the community very, very friendly and interested in the film. So always happy to see me when I came back over the course of time filming.
That's so great. I mean, like I said, it's such an incredibly stunning portrait of this community, and obviously our jury loved it. So what was that like to have your work validated? Or you said you shot over the course of a year. I mean, for all of you, I'm sure that resonates. And it's like you spend so much time. It's a labor of love, and then to have your work validated in such a way, what was that like?
Oh, it's fantastic to share work with others and then have it supported like that. It's a great feeling, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm also very thankful to be among great filmmakers here with their work. It's an honor to be a part of this. So.
There's certainly no shortage of talent in Memphis, that is for sure. And tonight was just a small sampling of all the incredible filmmakers that we have here in Memphis. To kind of transition to Noah, Life After Death. So what a fun film. You've got such a balance of could be heavy subject matter, but very playful and humorous and funny. Where did this story originate for you?
This one's been kicking around for probably more than 10 years. And I read an article in college about someone this had happened to, and I have no idea where I read it, or I couldn't find the story at this point, but I just always thought it would make an interesting story. And I'd tried to develop it into more of a drama for a while. And every few years I'd pull it out and I'd write a little bit, and then I couldn't figure out really what the story was, where I was going with it, and I'd put it away again. And it was at some point that I just started thinking that this is a seemingly far-fetched problem that you could have, to be declared legally dead. If that happened to you, you'd feel like, this is crazy. Nobody else would understand this problem that I have. But then I just started thinking through, I think everyone has something that they could say that about themselves for. I have this one weird thing that nobody else would understand. But whenever you find other people who understand that thing about you, it just makes you feel not alone. So that's where the support group came into it. And once that element was combined with the initial just oh, this is kind of a weird thing that could happen to someone, that's what really, when the story took shape. And then I knew at that point I wanted to bring humor into it. And I basically had everything written up until the support group meeting. And I knew I wanted then to get to meet other people and hear their stories. And again, I got stuck and had to put it away for a while. And I eventually invited my friend Julia McCloy to help me flesh out those stories. She hasn't done any film before, but she's a writer. He's written a lot of comedy and satire, and she had sent me a piece that she was working on for somewhere else. And at the same moment that I was stuck on this one, I was like, this humor that she has is exactly what I'm looking for. And so she helped me flesh out the stories of those individuals in the support group.
So those vignettes at the end are just kill me every time. They're so great. And I guess that kind of it answers a little bit of my question in terms of like the tone. Like it's really hard to find that balance between, that playful dark comedy and like it just, you seem to find that, and the pacing was so good, and especially with the tone. And I feel like a lot of that was, for me, a lot of that was in the way in which you decided to shoot the film. Who shot your film for you, and what was it like to kind of decide, especially in the beginning, you've got these really beautiful, like, long shots, and then you've got this incredibly tight close up, and it kind of goes back and forth like that. So what was it like kind of finding that rhythm and working with your DP?
Yeah, Andrew Trent Fleming is how he's usually credited, was my DP. And I knew I wanted him to work on this because I don't know that this necessarily comes through in the end result, but as I was writing and originally thinking through what I wanted, Edgar Wright was one of the people I was thinking of stylistically, and I saw Drew post something on his social media about how much he loved Hot Fuzz, which I think is a great goofy comedy, and I'd seen a lot of Drew's other work and just knew he was obviously a very talented DP, and just that he was talking about and thinking about a style that is what I had in mind for this film. I knew he'd be the right fit for it. And, I think there were 2 or 3 kind of centerpiece shots that I had in mind when I'd written it. And then the rest of it was just like kind of trusting him to figure out what we want to do, like what's going to serve this scene the best.
It's great. And then kind of similar to Daniel, you've worked, with your casting, you work with someone like Lisa Williams, who's incredible, but then you've got someone that you decided to cast who's never really acted before, the character of Sonny. So tell me about what that was like, partially because I'm a big fangirl of him as a musician, but I thought that your casting was also really, you made some really great choices there, like Daniel did. So what was that like? And what sparked that, hey, I think you can act?
Yeah, I've always liked amateur actors. I've always been drawn to people, like if just on a personal level, you can connect with them authentically. I feel like you can get natural performances. For me, it's like I either want to work with someone who's very experienced, like super professional actress, someone like Rosalind Ross, or I want to work with someone who just has a personality that connects to that character, but who may not have a lot of experience as an actor, that can just kind of be their natural presence. And you mentioned Offam, who's credited as Darian Conley in the film, and I thought he'd be perfect for this role because I don't know, anyone who's familiar with him, anyone who's seen him perform live knows that he's got a very elevated personality and sensibility in his music and his performance and his whole persona. But I found when I met him face to face, when I would talk to him, he's got such a like kind and almost gentle, polite sort of. He's just such a friendly guy that it's not what I would have expected just from seeing him perform. And so I felt like that kind of 2 sides of his personality matched the 2 sides of the character, who's of course recounting his story as if he's I didn't do anything wrong, but we get to see the reality of how it really went down on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, it's funny. It's like it can always be such a risk to just, you know, on a total non-actor. But, you know, in your case, that, you know, worked out so beautifully. Morgan, the one you never forget. The one I think everyone now has officially stopped crying. They've done their touch up on their makeup. What a beautiful, beautiful film. Morgan is actually currently located in Chicago, but he is a Memphian. Morgan, tell us about coming up with the idea for The One You Never Forget.
Yeah, first off, thank you, Bridget, for moderating this. I know it's not easy. And thanks to Bart and everyone for putting this together. It's really cool to anytime to see faces of human beings that isn't like the walls of my house. Anything like that is lovely. So thank you for getting us out and putting this all together. I actually got the idea for The One You Never Forget when I was on Facebook one day and saw all of these posts. It was like a formal or prom, you know, time that season when you start seeing all these posts of parents so proud of their children and posting the photos. And I just didn't see any queer kids, you know, parents posting photos of their queer children going to these dances. And I just thought about these, you know, hallmarks of life that we all experience, and that often for queer kids, it's not something that you can look back on and fondly, because you often didn't get to take the person that you wanted to. And of course, the world is changing now, and it's a lot more frequent that these things happen. But I just thought, well, what is a scenario where this does happen? First was my first thought, and two, a scenario where it happens in the South, and there's a positive reaction, because often, you know, especially with younger queer characters, these things go down and there's some kind of negative reaction, especially from a father. So I wanted to put a father in a scenario with a child where he is surprised, but has a positive reaction and reinforces, you know, and gives tools for people watching it just to be like, oh, there's another way to react to these scenarios.
Yeah. You know, it's always going to be really nice to see, you know, a story. You know, I always say this a lot while I'm programming, you know, when I'm trying to represent the LGBTQ community, both in front of and behind the camera, you know, especially in terms of content. It's so nice to see, you know, these stories that aren't surrounded in traumatic events or being disowned. So it's like, it is really refreshing to see just a really beautiful snapshot of, like you said, of what one reaction can be. And how it may not always be just so scary. So I want to talk a little bit about the end and your choices there. You know, you could have made a lot of different choices. You could have made, you know, like you said, like the father could have chosen to respond one way and he didn't. You know, he decided to respond in a very loving and compassionate way, and what you would hope every father or mother would respond, right? But you didn't do anything necessarily so over the top. Like there's a lot of silence, and there's a lot of these like really beautiful moments that really rely on the acting skills of how you cast this, and the facial expressions, and especially that moment in the car with that song. You know, so tell me about kind of, I don't know whether it's writing that or blocking those last few minutes, and how you chose it to just kind of really nicely sit, and essentially you're allowing the audience to really kind of take in that moment. Did you know you wanted to do that from, you know, the beginning of writing this, or was it kind of one of those things that kind of, you know, kind of just happened as, you know, you cast your actors?
Yeah, so it was definitely how I had initially conceived it. I know that I wanted it to be a very simple shoot that we could do in a single day at a single location. I knew that those were very important for me, because the caliber of actors that I was going after for this short were only going to be able to come in, fly in for a day, and that was all I would have them for. Mm-hmm. And so, but I wanted to accomplish a lot in terms of what the mechanics of what were happening in each character's minds. And so I put the one hook of, there's a kid going to the dance. Kids, when they're teenagers, are going to dances, they never want to introduce their date to their parents. It's always annoying. So I wanted that to be at play regardless of who the date was or what was going down. And then 2, I wanted to put the hook where the one parent is telling the other parent they have to get a picture of the child on their date because the mom was going off to work. They don't have a picture of their first dance. So there was that task. So the father had to go and meet the date because he had to get this picture. He's going to be in trouble with his wife, right? And so Tasha Smith sends him out there. She goes off to work. And then I just wanted there to be this one brief moment that you don't know how the father is going to react. So he comes to the window, sees that his son is out there with another boy about to go to this date. And when we were filming that, we completely ran out of light, and I felt so bad. Malik Whitfield is incredible actor. And I'm so grateful for the grace that he gave us because we ran out of light, and I literally looked at him and I was like, we have a minute and a half to shoot probably the most important moment of this film of you looking out of the door. And he was like, give me 30 seconds and then I'll give you a minute and it'll be perfect. And so he went away for 30 seconds, came back, DP Ashley Connor like grabbed the camera, we got all set up, and he came to the door. We did it in 2 takes. And then, it was just these simple little beats that we knew we had to capture. And it was all going to happen fast as those moments do, and the only reason that I think, it doesn't get more complicated because 1, we don't have the time to do it. And 2, I just think that these moments we treat so grand after the fact, but in the moment, they are often very simple, quick choices that need to be made.
Yeah.
And then, the situation in the car at the end almost didn't happen because we fully ran out of light. It's obviously completely night and hours had passed, but we just went and shot with them. That was the very last thing we did after the rest of the crew was leaving, is that we went off in the car. I was actually hiding behind them in the back of that SUV, curled up in the floor, giving them direction, looking at a monitor, while Ashley shot and my DP shot from the front seat. And those 2 actors, those kids are incredible.
Totally. They were so great. And the thing is, like, what is it like to work with child actors? But it just seems like they just seem like total professionals.
They were excellent.
Of your lead, like just like the way that he acts with his face is just. I'm gonna try not to cry just like thinking about it. He's really spectacular. So where did you find? You obviously there's some familiar faces in your cast. So what was that casting process like for you, and how did you? So
I knew finding the kids was going to be the hardest thing, and unfortunately we couldn't cast them out of Memphis. We tried, even with like Craig Brewer's name attached as a producer, and Katori Hall, and these folks that have big names and that initially attracted people, but as soon as they read the sides, like no one would read for it, even though it's like there's nothing like, it's a very harmless movie, clearly. So we ended up having Lisa Lax was the casting director, and she reached out to some child or teenage casting agencies in Atlanta. And so we had a whole bunch of people read and put on tape for that. And they were both like, I cast them both right away, like out of everyone, some really great reads, but Owen and London, the 2 kids were easy, no brainers. And so they both came in, and then the parents that all came together in like less than a week leading up to shooting. Katori Hall gave me a list of folks that she had worked with in TV and in theater. And then Craig Brewer helped with reaching out to some folks. So Tasha was someone that I wanted to cast. She had been in, Empire, and she does a lot of stuff, but he had specifically directed her on Empire. And so he gave her a call. She read the script, was totally down. And then she had worked with Malik before. He was also someone on my short list, and she was like, I'll call him. I would love to work with Malik. We did our first movie together like 20 years ago. Yeah. So she called him up, and he was like shooting another movie, but he came in for the weekend to give us a day to shoot. So it was really fortunate how it all came together. It was a very brief window, and got very lucky.
That's awesome. Awesome. And as always, for the audience, everyone who's tuning in, feel free to send in questions. We do only have a few more minutes left, so I will be keeping my eye on that. But I want to jump back to Daniel really quickly because I forgot to ask you this up front. You also have had a number of films at Indie Memphis, well, especially this past year, but you've done narrative as well as documentary short films. And I'm just kind of wondering, same thing that I asked Zaire, where you feel most comfortable in, because you seem to go back and forth between the two genres pretty seamlessly. So where do you find yourself most comfortable?
I would definitely say narrative. For a documentary, the subject matter really has to interest me.
Yeah.
I don't really plan a documentary. It's just, I'm out in the world and I just see something that I like and I'll say, okay, I want to make a documentary about that. So I don't really plan my documentaries. I do plan my narratives. So I get a lot of ideas, and just the whole fictional route is just, the route I feel more comfortable with.
So how many films did you have in this past year's lineup?
I had 2.
That's right. So what was the other one, if you want to take a moment and plug that one as well?
It's called Tag. It was the movie that I won the Indie grant for last year. So that was in, thank you. That was in this year's Indie Memphis, and we just released it, I think, last month. So it's on Vimeo. You can go to my Facebook or Instagram and check it out.
It's really great.
Thank you.
So let's see. So I'm kind of getting the high sign here. But there were 2 questions that came in that I think can be consolidated into this one. You guys are getting a lot of kudos in our comments. Everybody really, really enjoyed your films and enjoy your work. So I want to kind of go around. We can just kind of start from the top. Everyone wants to hear about what you guys are working on currently and where they can find any of your current work, whether you want to plug your Vimeo, Instagram, whatever that is. And maybe you guys can come back later and put it in the comments on Facebook. But to kind of wrap it up, I'd like to hear again what you guys are currently working on and where everyone can find your previous work. Daniel, if you want to start. I know you just kind of plugged it a little bit, but what are you working on right now?
I'm working on a couple of films. I usually like to keep it private until they're finished. I just don't want to jinx it or anything. So,
There.
But yeah, I was working on a film for the Film Pros before it got shut down. So I'm still hoping to get that going. Hopefully sometime this year. But you can. My Instagram is Flexateur, FLEXAUTEUR. And you can just search Daniel Ferrell on Facebook, and that's where I post all my stuff. So you can find me on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. David?
Oh, sure. I'm working on a longer documentary about the 2018-2019 Ballet Memphis season with Steve Ross, my colleague and collaborator. So we're in the editing phase of that film. So feature doc. And then to see more of my work, David Goodman on Vimeo.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Morgan?
I also want to plug Indie Grants. I got an Indie Grant to help make this short, and Indie Grant is such an amazing program. So thank you, Indie Memphis. Thank you, Mark Jones. Thank you, all the sponsors. And also my producer, Adam Hohenberg, came in really big to help make that short film happen. So I had to make sure to give my props there. You can see my films, or at least get information about them, at morganjonfox.com. There's no H in John. It's very important. I'm working on now. I've been writing on and off for over a year, but just finally got a first draft during quarantine of a feature film inspired by real stories of a group of high school kids that convinced a washed up con woman music producer that they were the Smashing Pumpkins. And that's all I'll say about that. But I'm working on the second draft as we speak. I'm literally right now, I'm over here typing. And that's it. That's what I'm working on.
Awesome. And Morgan, thank you so much for joining us from Chicago. We miss you. Can't wait to have you home.
Miss y'all.
Zaire?
So I just finished my thesis film called The Black Man I Know. It's a documentary. The runtime is about 23 minutes. And it follows an uncle and a nephew and how they deal with grief and how grief manifests itself in these different decisions and things of that sort. And it really hones in on like black men and how they process grief and how they do that in Memphis. So that's the film that I just finished. And this summer I plan on doing a couple of shorts. One about Black swim culture in Memphis, but we'll see if that is a thing. But I'm also trying my hand at writing a full-length narrative script that's based around like Afrofuturism here in Memphis. So those are the things that I have up my sleeve for summer and the rest of the year. And if you all want to see more of my work, you can just go to my website at zairelove.com, ZAIRELOVE.com, or follow me on Instagram at ZY_YEAR.
That's awesome. Well, I very much look forward to seeing all of your films come through, submitting this year. Thank you so much, Zaire. And Noah.
Yeah, I've got a few things to plug. So I'm very grateful to be the recipient of an indie grant from 2019. So I've got a narrative short called The Secret that was in pre-production before the pandemic, and now it's kind of just indefinitely on hold. We'll see when I get a chance to make that. I've got another short narrative I've just written that was based on a true story of how my grandparents met that I'm hoping to also shoot soon. I am collaborating with a neighbor of mine, Gino Barziza, who is an illustrator. He had an idea for an animated film he wanted to make, and so I just wrote that. It was my first feature screenplay for his project called Once I Had a Flower. And then this is not in film world, but I will put, it may not be obvious from someone who makes a film about dead people, but passion of mine is actually developing children's media. So I have a podcast called Like You. It's a mindfulness for kids podcast. And so if you got kids between the ages of roughly 2 to 10, it's a good thing for them to listen to. And I guess you can find that at likeyoupodcast.com. And then all my film stuff I do under the production name Perpetual Motion. So you can find perpetualmotion.film as the website, or Perpetual Motion on most social media.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you guys enough again for talking to me tonight. The audience, if you've been taking a look at the live comments, everybody thoroughly enjoyed all of your work and definitely look forward to seeing what you guys do next. And don't forget, send your films to us, everything you're working on, so we can program it at the next Indie Memphis. Again, you guys are amazing. It was fun to spend the evening with you, and I'll be talking to all of you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Bye.